everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about a book I read recently. It is called Born on a Blue Day, and the author is Daniel Tammet. He's from the UK, and the subtitle of this book is Inside the Extraordinary Mind of an Autistic Savant. And he is what's considered a savant because he's like a mathematical genius. For some reason, his brain is just wired differently, and he can compute massive numbers and count, and he knows what prime numbers are and things like that. And he actually wrote this book himself to explain, what goes on inside his mind, how he views the world, and the types of things that he experiences living as a savant. And he considers himself to be very unique because he's actually able to explain and articulate to others what his experience is like, even though he apparently is like very, I guess like you could say like on the low spectrum of the Asperger's autistic syndrome. I guess there are varying levels of if you're very autistic and you can't even speak or you don't speak versus him who he can speak, he can talk, he can, explain things very well. He's learned how to become, a person that lives in the world and just, interacts with other people. And even though he has moments where he feels awkward or uncomfortable, he just, has learned how to cope and how to deal with them. So in this book, he tells all about his childhood, how he grew up, how his childhood was very different from other kids, and he was kind of off in his own world, and also how he sees the world and sees numbers as different colors and having different personalities and shapes and things like that. In the book, he also has some illustrations and pictures of how he views numbers and things like that. So, for example, here you can see 37 and 39, how he sees them, how they show up, the personalities that they have, the colors that they take on, things like that. It's really actually very fascinating, and for him to actually have drawn those pictures and to show what he sees, it's incredible. So I really enjoyed this book. My boyfriend actually bought this book for me about 3 years ago, and I never got around to reading it because I figured, well, I own it, I can read it anytime I want, and I usually read library books which have to be returned by a certain time. So I just put it off, and finally I said, no, I'm going to read it. So I started reading it, and I think it was a little slow getting into it because he talks in the beginning a lot about numbers and things like that, and I'm not a numbers or a math person. But once he started moving into his life and his childhood, I mean, it's an autobiography just like any other one where he talks about himself, his life, his family, growing up, the challenges and things that he faced. And it's really fascinating to see him evolve and become independent. And what especially fascinated me was he is a polyglot. He can speak, I think, 10 languages, and he just detailed his experience of learning Icelandic in something like a week or something like that. And I think that's just outstanding how he's able to do that. I would love to have that ability to pick up languages like that. I think it'd be incredible. And they also referenced in the book a documentary they did on him, and I actually was able to find it on YouTube. I can put a link in the description box if you're interested, and I went and I watched that, and it was interesting to actually see him and hear him speak and see the things that he talked about in the book. So he's actually written several other books since then, and he's just an overall fascinating guy. He's given TED Talks, and I think it's just incredible how his brain works, and he has a really great story to tell. So even though this is maybe more of a mathematical-based book, I mean, not totally, but it does have a lot of elements in that, I would definitely recommend it. It reads very quickly. It's very interesting. It's very narrative. It's told from his perspective. It's a very short, thin book. I think it's a little over 200 pages. Yeah, 227 pages about. So if you're interested in stories like that, or in learning about what it's like to just have a brain that works a little bit differently, then I would definitely recommend this book to you. Or even if you've read this book, maybe consider checking out a couple of his other books. So that's it for now. I'll be back again with another book to talk about, and I'll see you in a future video. Bye, guys.